There's a couple new Nintendo Switch stories we have to talk about today, starting with Summer Games Fest and some very interesting comments from Mr. Jeff Keighley himself around where fans should be setting their expectations for this presentation, and a very interesting tease for a Microsoft and Nintendo exclusive title. Then the big talking point for today's video has to do with Nintendo Switch Online, an imminent update that should hit the service later on tonight, and a discussion of what title this is for, how it ties into the NSO expansion pack, and a large discussion around what, if anything, it means for the upcoming and hopefully soon announced Nintendo Direct. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. As I mentioned, guys, we got a couple different major stories to unpack today, and we have to kick it off with a large conversation around Summer Games Fest, as June 9th through the 12th is claimed to be the core of that showcase, if you will, even though it's kind of been branded or slapped on the Sony State of Play event, the Microsoft Bethesda showcase, but in all reality, it will be one standalone event itself that is kind of trying to be that E3 replacement, with now E3 2022 being fully canceled, and really none of us for sure knowing that E3 will even come back in 2023. And the reason we are talking about it today is Jeff Keighley has made some very interesting comments around where fans should be setting their expectations going into this showcase, because I think it's fair to say up to this point in time, Keighley has received a lot of criticism for overhyping a presentation and then essentially under delivering when that presentation comes and goes, and this very much appears to be him trying to get ahead of that potential criticism ahead of time, as he's actually kind of downplaying what we may see featured at this event. Not saying that it won't be entertaining, but just that it's going to be a lot of existing game titles that we already know about, as opposed to brand new massive reveals. And to get on the same page with exactly what's been said from Jeff, and also a very interesting hint and reference at a Nintendo and Microsoft project, let's quickly hop over to VGC and read through the detailed article typed up together. Jeff Keighley says Summer Games Fest will be primarily focused on announced games. The presenter urges viewers to manage their expectations in terms of megaton shocks. Speaking during a Twitter Spaces audio session this weekend transcribed by VGC, Keighley said he was very excited about the content set to feature in the show, which he said will include massive games alongside independent titles and new teams showcasing their projects for the first time. Keighley claimed the show would include exclusive games for both Xbox and Nintendo Switch, but said that Microsoft would likely keep its biggest hitters for its own showcase, and it was unclear if Nintendo itself was involved in Summer Games Fest. We'd love to have them involved if and when they're ready. He also urged viewers to rein in their expectations in terms of any megaton shocks they might be expecting, and called some of the rumors he'd seen online crazy. We've got a couple new game announcements in the show, and hopefully some surprises if everything holds. But it definitely is a show that's primarily focused on stuff that is announced. He added, so we're doing some good stuff for you, but definitely manage your expectations in terms of the megaton shocks that you're expecting. This is not the Game Awards. We've got a lot of good stuff to show you, but buyer beware of some of the crazy rumors I'm seeing out there in terms of things people expect to get announced. So listen, for me personally, I would rather have this kind of message sent out to fans and say, hey, listen, we're not going to have blockbuster after blockbuster brand new game reveal that you guys haven't seen anywhere previously before, but rather probably more in-depth footage of existing projects we know to be in development right now. And it's better to have lower expectations going into an event and then over deliver, as opposed to us being all super hyped and ready to tune in for an hour and a half to 2 hours packed full of brand new game announcements. And it's like, wait a minute, this is almost all stuff we've already seen before. I will be curious to see what are the brand new titles that may be featured at the event. There's definitely a lot of information pointing to Hollow Knight Silksong potentially finally showing up at Summer Games Fest, as there was a back and forth with Keighley and a PR manager for the developing team of that game, and by all accounts it sounds like it is very likely that that game will show up at Summer Games Fest, which I am personally very hyped for. Now, in terms of what is this mystery Nintendo and Microsoft project that will be featured at the event, well, I want to say that's Goldeneye, with all of the achievements that have continued to be unlocked for that game from Rare developers, and now them just straight up being on Microsoft's website that you can actually go and see a live list of loaded achievements for Goldeneye, some kind of remaster for the project. Yes, it is coming. At this point, it is all but confirmed that that game will be announced at one of these summertime presentations. However, the main core of Summer Games Fest is taking place before Xbox and Bethesda showcase, and if I'm a betting man, I don't think that we get the curtain pulled back on such a massive project that Microsoft would be very happy to show off at their own showcase at something like Summer Games Fest. So I personally think this could be a different project that is being in reference from something that would be exclusive to Microsoft and Nintendo consoles alike. However, if Goldeneye Remastered is indeed unveiled at Summer Games Fest, that would definitely be a bombshell announcement and one that would get the internet overwhelmed with joy and hype, as clearly fans are ready for that game to come back in a big way. It's been far too long since we got the first run of it on the N64. There was an interesting attempt at a remake on the Wii, but not really that same classic project, and this is the time for it to finally re-emerge in the modern era and be available with online multiplayer, modern control support, and hopefully some very nice updated visuals. However, it will be very interesting to see how Microsoft and Nintendo agree to announce it, because does Nintendo get a remastered version also, or do they just get something like the Nintendo Switch Online N64 version, and then Game Pass gets just the remastered one with the better visuals and textures? Does it actually come out as a standalone release that gets sold digitally and physically on both consoles? Like, there's a ton of questions around how this game will ultimately be released, but I do think it is a for sure thing with all of the information that we are seeing online around the title. I want to hear from you guys around all things Summer Games Fest. What games are you hoping we see featured there? Do you think we're finally getting that Hollow Knight Silksong trailer and maybe even a release date? What existing titles are you hoping they do a deeper dive into? I'm hoping that Sonic Frontiers gets a nicely packaged, more concise, put together trailer and not just these IGN 7-minute gameplay overview sections that has so far had the internet very divided on what kind of project this will ultimately be. And then share with me your personal prediction around what you think the Microsoft and Nintendo project that's featured at Summer Games Fest may be. Do you think it's GoldenEye, or do you think that Xbox will indeed be the one most likely revealing that at their showcase? Or is Nintendo going to plan their direct and actually be the ones to first feature that game, then Microsoft follows it up with an announcement later on? So please share all your hype and excitement, what you want to see from Summer Games Fest 2022 in the comments down below. Now, the other story we're talking about today has to do with Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack and a very interesting title that just got server maintenance scheduled. And while this is not a confirmation that anything will be dropping later on tonight, it is interesting, as you may know that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course DLC has only received one wave so far, and we know to expect 6 total. And it has been spotted online from Nin Status Bot that maintenance has been scheduled for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on June 7th from 55 UTC to 2 UTC, which will be later on this evening here in the US. And the reason it is interesting for maintenance being scheduled this week is, of course, the fact that we don't have any kind of confirmation of a Nintendo Direct taking place later on this week or even next week. And a lot of people would expect this maintenance to align with something like their presentation time, because, of course, we could probably most safely bet on the fact that Nintendo will have a small portion of that Direct focused on Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, hopefully that N64 games roadmap update, and then follow it up with what's next in the Booster Course Pass Wave 2, and that's most likely how we would get this announcement. Now, Nintendo could very well just want to get out ahead of any kind of official Direct announcement and just do this as a surprise Twitter drop. That is not personally what I'm expecting. That's definitely a possibility with this. There is also, you have to keep in mind, the possibility that this is just server maintenance that needs to be done to address some bugs or issues that are in the game, or laying the groundwork for future updates that will hit later on. But the reality is we may get through this maintenance window, everything goes back online, and then we still are completely in the dark on what, if anything, was changed. But I will definitely be watching it closely to see if we get any kind of surprise announcement from Nintendo for Wave 2 separate from a Nintendo Direct. That would actually make me a little bit concerned that Nintendo for some reason would skip their Direct. I don't think that's going to happen, but why would they not feature an announcement of Wave 2 at the Nintendo Directs? Especially if you do the math, it seems like the logical place for that announcement to show up, as there's 6 total waves of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe tracks, and we know that there's essentially 6 Directs that they can announce them at. And if you look at a calendar from when they originally unveiled the first wave back in February at that Direct, well, then it would make sense to do one in June and then again in September and have the waves launch a month after the featured presentation, and then that would actually take us through the end of 2023 if they just repeated that for another year, which is when the roadmap for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC is scheduled to be wrapped up. So that makes a lot of sense to me. So I personally am not setting my expectations to see a live tweet come out from Nintendo that Wave 2 is unveiled and announced and here's the trailer for it tonight. I would love to see that happen because I do want to play brand new tracks and find out what Wave 2 has to offer, hopefully DK Mountain from Double Dash, but that is not where I am setting my expectations, but rather that this is something that's taking place now and will most likely be featured at that Direct that I think we can expect next week. I'm not going to put my money on this week. Maybe Nintendo announces it tomorrow and it's for Wednesday. We know if you look at history that Tuesday through Thursday are definitely the most likely days throughout the week that they will host a major direct. So then you have to think for sure, if we don't get an announcement by Wednesday, that indeed we can set our expectations to the 14th at the soonest to maybe the 16th at the latest. However, the 14th does sound like a pretty solid date to me at this point. And ultimately, when we get that direct to take place, that's when I think we are going to see what the server maintenance actually was and get the update officially announced with a hype trailer for NSO Plus expansion pack at the next Nintendo Direct. But that's my personal thoughts and theories around it. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video. Both the stories we talked about today, definitely share with me where your hype levels are for Summer Games Fest. If you want to see more of existing games that we already have announced, what are some big surprises that you would like to see featured at that showcase? Do you think we're getting Goldeneye finally announced over the summer? And how do you think that game ultimately releases? Then definitely let me know what you think this server maintenance for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is. Do you think we're actually getting Wave 2 surprise drop from Nintendo tonight, separate from any kind of Nintendo Direct announcement? Or do you think this is just routine server maintenance, doesn't have anything to do with Wave 2 at all? And when do you think Nintendo will ultimately give us that Nintendo Direct announcement so we know what to plan on as Nintendo fans? So regardless of your thoughts and theories on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch the weekend video next if you haven't already, where we boot up Goldeneye 64 together and have a broad conversation of where all of the leaks and rumors for this title originated, as well as the most recent update with those trophies continuing to be unlocked from Rare developers. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.